It is my pleasure, by the special grace of God, to present today the 63rd inaugural lecture of FUNAAB Inaugural Lecture Series. This is the 12th lecture from the College of Plant Science and Crop Protection. It's also the 3rd lecture from my department, Department of Plant Physiology and Crop Production, and the very first inaugural lecture from IFSERA. The institute settled with the research component of the 3 mandates of this university. The title of this inaugural lecture is Unlocking the Production Potentials of Some Annual Oilseed Crops in Nigeria. I said some because there are several oilseed crops growing in this country. Our beloved country, Nigeria, is located in West Africa and situated on 91 million hectares, out of which only 40 million, about 45% hectares, are used as cropland. Nigeria boasts of 2 of the largest rivers in Africa. We are talking about rivers Niger and Benue. But unfortunately, less than 1% of our cropland in this nation is irrigated. And we are the most populous nation in Africa. Oilseeds generally are crops that bear oil in their seeds. We have an array of oilseed crops growing very well in this country, like cashew that we consume the nut, oil palm, cottonseed, groundnut, sunflower, sesame, soybeans, maize, castor bean, among others. The ones highlighted in red will be the crops of focus in this lecture. Talking about edible vegetable oil that we all consume on a daily basis, our national requirement for consumption has been estimated to be about 3 million tons per annum. Unfortunately, our great country, we are not meeting that demand. We have a shortfall of over 600,000 tons that is being met by importation. And the leading oilseed crops we consume in this country are palm oil, or palm kernel oil, and soybean oil. They account for 70 and 25% respectively in the national consumption requirement. The remaining 5% is met by other oilseed crops. Based on what Central Bank reported, Nigeria spent over $500 million to import palm oil alone annually. And in 2017, about $1.5 billion, not naira, was spent on importation of 11 vegetable crops. The prominent ones that were imported are palm oil, soybeans, and sunflower. And you can see the share of sunflower in that part of palm oil, soybean, and sunflower in that pie chart. This afternoon, I'll be discussing or sharing with us my contributions to oilseed production research in the country. And I'll be speaking basically to these 3 major crops: sesame, otherwise known as Benny seed. Those of us who grew up in the early 60s and late 50s, you'll recall Anchor butter. If you patronize Kingsway, Leventis, Domino stores, the oil used in preparing Anchor butter is from sesame oil. And the usual folk tale also, Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, when they say open sesame, they are referring to sesame, which is also being used in Sesame Street. I will also be sharing with us what we have done today on soybeans, glycine-max, and thirdly, sunflower. These 3 oilseeds, in literature, they refer to them as orphan crops, that is, or minor oilseeds, what you grow after removing the main crop. But that narrative has changed over the years. They are no longer minor. as you will see shortly, particularly sesame. They are now major oilseed crops. So to sesame, it's an oilseed crop. The appellation is Queen of Oilseeds. It has premium quality. And based on where you come from in Nigeria, you can easily understand what you can recognize the name of sesame. Ekuku is what is called among the Yorubas, Ridi in the north and in other languages. These are pictorial plates showing sesame. If you look at the top middle picture, that's what you see if you travel to Okene or Lokoja. You see people, children hawking sesame. We are basically consuming gold raw, unknowingly. And it comes in the pearly white color and also the black color. I will expatiate on the right corner picture of sesame. That was a warehouse in China. When in 2019, we attended an international conference of sesame scientists. And in the warehouse of the largest sesame processing plant in China, I saw a large volume of consignment, and they wrote origin, Nigeria. When they knew I came from Nigeria as the only black man in the conference, I turned to a celebrity, and everybody started taking photographs that, oh, so we are from the country where these soybean seeds came from. Pioneer research started in 1964 at our Institute of Agricultural Research in Zaria, and the yield was so low, just 300 kilograms. But over the years, the yield has improved to over a ton per hectare. And today, our country, Nigeria, is the second largest producer in Africa after Tanzania. And we also occupy the 4th position in the world. If you look at the bar at the corner, these are the 10 top agricultural products exported by Nigeria as of 2019, half year of 2019. Sesame, that used to be a minor seed crop, was #1 and is still #1. It has overtaken cocoa, cashew, and other agricultural products. So it's no longer an orphan crop. It's no longer a minor oilseed crop. And the 10th on the list is also the oil from sesame oil. Soybeans is the second crop we are discussing this afternoon. It's also an oilseed crop, though it has lower oil content than sesame, and it has higher protein content. That's why it's popular, predominantly used in poultry feed. It's also called these several names in literature. In China, it's very, very important, and in India as well. There are over 365 recipes on soybeans. That is, a day you can utilize a recipe from soybeans. And lastly, sunflower, which is relatively new to us in Nigeria, is also a promising oilseed crop. And the oil contains vitamin C that has anti-inflammatory and cardiovascular benefits. Also, it contains magnesium, which is responsible for calming nerves. As a background to this lecture, I'll just spend a few minutes on the vegetation belts in Nigeria. Our country is well endowed. From the far Sahel savanna that is extremely dry, down to the mangrove, the riverine areas in the south. The graph there, the map of Nigeria showing where sesame can be grown. Ditto for soybeans and sunflower. There is no part of this country except the riverine areas where these tropical oilseeds cannot grow. They have that tremendous potential to grow. But erroneously, they are just restricted to the middle belt of this country. At present, it's a known fact that our agriculture is performing below its potential because it is mainly rain-fed cultivation that we do because less than 1% is under irrigation. And rainfall is the most critical growth factor in Nigerian agriculture. You bear us witness with what happened last year. God forbid that we should have that experience in August this year again, when farmers lost hectares, millions of hectares of cropland. By now, rains will have established, but it's still not regular. But the good news is that these oil seeds, based on the rainfall requirements, they can perform very well. Like sesame is relatively drought tolerant, between 500 to 650 millimeters, and sunflower soybean between 500 and 750 millimeters will give very good yield. We did a study for 8 years using sunflower as a test crop, and we monitored the yield for over 8 years. Despite the vagaries of the weather, sunflower still recorded very comparable grain yield values, demonstrating the potential of the crop in this part of the country. We did an analysis of hydrothermal conditions, that is rainfall and temperature, in our university for 19 years, between 2000 and 2019, and compared with 35 years average, long-term average. And the results we got were quite suitable even for the production of the oilseed crop, because the lowest was in 2015 and the highest was in 2010. We recorded adequate rainfall. So despite the fact that rainfall is the most critical factor, it was not limiting for the cultivation of these crops. So on to sesame production research proper now. The major challenge we identified when I started my career as far back as 1990 at the National Cereals Research Institute, Badegi, when I was posted to the Oilseed Research Program, was that we discovered that we were not getting optimum output from a unit land area of sesame cultivated. The two basic methods of cultivation were the Igbira method and the Tiv method. We studied those two methods and we improved on them. We also identified that appropriate fertilizer regime to boost production was not in place. Similarly, optimum sowing date across agroecological zones were also changing with time. And we also discovered that farmers were losing a lot after harvest, about 5 to 10% of feed loss. Also, sesame was 100% manual. No aspect of it was mechanized. And seed processing plants were also very few. To date, there are just 3 in Nigeria, one in Kano, one in Nasarawa, and the other one in Lagos. Again, there was need to integrate sesame into the existing farming systems, and also the effects of pests and diseases, and yield loss was up to 25%. As of today, only one research institute in Nigeria, that is NCR Badegi, is working on sesame, and that is grossly inadequate. So my pioneer studies included row spacing of sesame. After the study, we came up with 60 by 5 to 10 centimeter as the appropriate spacing for sesame. Immediately, we stepped these results down at the monthly technical review meeting and Niger State. All the sesame farmers adopted, since 1994, they adopted that spacing. And up to date is the spacing we still use, even in intercropping. We also did work on the response to fertilizer application, and we came up with 60 kg of nitrogen and 30 kg of P, and applied at 3rd week after sowing, and it was adequate. Working on the yield loss, because at a certain stage, insects defoliate sesame on the field. So we simulated defoliation up to 66% and 99% at flowering. And we discovered that if defoliation should take place at that stage, up to these levels, the plant or the variety affected will not yield desired yield values. So it was our recommendation that we made at that time. Then sowing dates also. in this part of the country, we arrived at early to mid-July as the optimum time to sow sesame. Some varieties were developed by NCRI Badegi. We did the evaluation taking into consideration the premium qualities. If your sesame must go into the international market, it must meet certain criteria. When we evaluated our promising varieties, the results were very positive. And also harvesting sesame, we were able to cut down the feed loss. If you harvest at physiological maturity, you stack on the field and you thresh 3 and 4 weeks after harvest, you will not record appreciable yield loss. So these are the promising varieties that we evaluated. We discovered that there are 1,000 seed weight. Most of them, except for 2, were above 3 grams. If you want to sell your sesame in the international market, once your 1,000 seed weight is below 3.0 grams, no buyer, no vendor will accept it. Also, the oil content must not be below 40%. And from the varieties grown in Nigeria, they all produce 40 and above. And their yield values are very encouraging, over a ton per hectare if properly managed. This was the highlights of the study we did, threshing at 3 and 4 weeks after harvest. You can see this is manual threshing, but it can be mechanized, as we will see shortly. So to soybean, later I'll come back to sesame under mixtures. These were the works we did as sole sesame. To soybean now is the most widely cultivated oilseed crop in the whole world. Presently, Nigeria is number 2 after South Africa in terms of yield, and we are number 14 in the world. Unfortunately, soybean grain yield has been stagnant in Nigeria in the last 5 years. The world average is over 2.7 tons per hectare. Africa, 1.4 tons per hectare. Nigeria, we are a little below 1 ton. Don't crucify us. The 2.7 you are seeing in the world could be GMO. But in Nigeria, we don't have GM soybeans for now. So we have only open pollinated varieties and not hybrids or genetically modified varieties. So our yield is still comparable if properly managed. Then some of the constraints identified were suboptimal population. Farmers planting using wide rows, 1 meter apart. They are simply underutilizing the potentials of soybeans, and also fertilizer regime and post-harvest handling. So our pioneer studies, when IITA developed some varieties, we were able to characterize some of those varieties and we reported them accordingly. From the studies, we came up that planting soybean as close as 45 cm apart still yielded we still recorded good yield. So it's between 45 and 60, but we settled hitherto for 60 cm between row spacing. And the 2 promising varieties we've identified to date are TGX 1448-2E and 1414-1E. These are medium maturing varieties and they are very stable across geopolitical zones. Also, locally produced organic fertilizers have also been enhancing grain yield of soybeans. We have Aleshiloye is the prime choice, is abattoir-based fertilizer. Organofarm is brewery waste-based, and Gateway is animal dung and wood ash based. They enhanced quality and grain yield of soybean if applied at the appropriate time. This is the study on the organic fertilizer. You can see they enhance the oil content of the oil of the soybean, and also the protein content and the grain yield. Again, that was what we did on soybean as sole. We'll discuss their mixtures later. Sunflower, according to the records available, it was first cultivated in 1965 in Nigeria, and it's a relatively new crop, restricted only to the Guinea Savannah region. We are gradually introducing it into the forest savanna transition zone of Nigeria. The production is so low in Nigeria to the extent that it has not been captured by the FAO statistics. Production constraints and how to enhance its production, the optimum planting population to adopt, and the agronomic performance in mixtures. So work done so far on sunflower, we've arrived at the appropriate fertilizer and the regime. The best time is to apply it 21 days after planting, when you will have done the first weeding. And also population, because it's an erect crop, it does not shade component crops in mixture. It does not lodge at all. If properly planted, it can withstand high population. And we recorded linear increase in yield when we increased from 37,500 to over 111,000 plants per hectare. We've identified promising varieties that performed very well in several experiments. So this was the fertilizer regime study. Applying a single dose at 21 days after sowing was adequate and optimum for sunflower production. There is something unique about sunflower. It carries a beautiful single head. But if you have seen the plant of sunflower, you see some carrying multiple heads. That's only good for decoration. So farmers thought it could be due to mutation. We now did a study. We harvested seeds from multiple heads. We harvested seeds from a single head, and we planted them out. At the end of the day, there was no difference. So that fear in the hearts of farmers that, if you plant tiny seeds, you will not get something reasonable, was allayed. Irrespective of the seed source, we got comparable grain yield from sunflower. This was the population study, and you can see the linear increase from 37,500, 1.8 tons to 111,000, 3 tons per hectare in both years of experimentation. And this was the study on the multiple heads. The local variety, Funtua, we know is a town in the northern part of Nigeria. The local variety there in particular, the multiple heads, seeds from the multiple head, even out-yielded seeds from the single head. So irrespective of your source of seed, you can go ahead and plant sunflower. So mixture productivity now, I haven't established the performance of these crops under sole cropping. We now stepped up to carry out studies on mixture productivity, that is integrating them into existing farming systems. Particularly, we tried them with cassava, maize, cowpea. These are established crops in this part of the country, and we recorded very encouraging results that will give boldness to any investor that wants to go into the production. So we did several mixtures: sesame plus soybean plus sunflower, sesame, sunflower, sesame, soybean, soybean, sunflower, as you will see shortly. Intercropping, this was the study carried by a PhD student, my PhD student at Ogbomoso, soybean and sesame on different rows, and she got very fantastic results. From the mixtures we did with maize, sesame, we discovered that if you plant maize and you introduce soybeans at 100% of the population under soil, you won't do any evil, or nothing will happen to those component crops. Their yield will still be as high as the yield under soil crop. Same thing with sesame and sunflower in 2002 and 2003. These local varieties also performed very well in mixtures, and they competed very well. Sunflower, being a taller plant, did not overshadow sesame, which is a less vigorous crop compared to sunflower. Also, we introduced cowpea and soybean into sunflower-based cropping system. When it was done simultaneously and at 10 leaf stage, the results, we got the highest monetary return, a monetary equivalent ratio, and sunflower yield equivalent. These are the results depicting mixture of E8 and sunflower varieties. E8 is the standard sesame variety in Nigeria. It is well recognized, it is high yielding. If you carry out any trial, you don't use it as the standard or the check, you have not done anything. And we discovered that it competed very well with sunflower, which is more vigorous than it is. And also the two promising soybean varieties, 1448 and 1440, also performed very well when mixed with exotic varieties of sunflower from Argentina that we got. Our contributions on mixture productivity experiments: sunflower, soybeans in 2001, cassava, sesame, sunflower in 2003 and 2004. The most popular cassava variety, TMS 30572, when mixed with sesame and sunflower, we recorded very, very high yield of these component crops. And we concluded that if you grow these crops together in the late cropping season, which is the more preferred season, we will be reducing the challenges of food insecurity in so many households in the country. And we also did some work on crop rotation. It's a long-term experiment for 5 years. We discovered after the 5th year of the study, 2008 to 2012, we did an analysis of the 5-year work study. We discovered that very comparable grain yields were recorded by the component crops in the mixture under organic and conventional cropping systems. So organic agriculture, we know, is now recognized as the fastest growing sector in agriculture. It's over $1 million in terms of money. Now, it's very, very lucrative. And what is it about? It relies simply on ecological processes, biodiversity, cycles adapted to local conditions without the use of synthetic inputs. You may want to ask, can it feed us? Yes, to a large extent, at small scale or medium scale. It can go a long way in feeding the teeming population of Nigeria. We got this grant from the EU and did a study to identify the skills gap of the faculty. We reviewed the faculty of different specialized universities in the country and were able to document the missing gaps in terms of skills among the faculties in Nigeria. And we have done several studies that confirm the production potential of these oilseed crops under organic production systems as shown on the table. When you talk of organic, everything started in 1920 up to 1970. They were working in screen houses, growing in their crops in pots. And later when they discovered the potential, they stepped up to organic 2.0. That was when standards were introduced, private standards were introduced. They now moved to the field. People started converting to organic agriculture. And Nigeria is not standing aloof. We have also developed standard for organic agriculture in Nigeria. That's the cover of the standard. It was produced in 2012 and revised again in 2015. Now it has moved to 3.0. And people are gathered, they selected scientists across the world in 2015. And luckily, I was there as the only black one again. And we've developed Organic 3.0. What is Organic 3.0? It's about moving it to investment level now, developing standards and involving the market because it is the fastest growing sector in agriculture. I'm concluding, ladies and gentlemen. So based on our findings on oilseed crop research, in the last 2 to 3 decades, we've been able to demonstrate that soybeans, sesame, and sunflower have huge agroclimatic production potential in the forest savanna transition ecology, which is outside the savanna traditional growing region for the crops. The oilseeds produce very comparable and high quality grain yields when cultivated during the late cropping season, not the early cropping season, because they need very dry weather in November, December to harvest and process. We have developed appropriate agronomic practices such as optimal sowing date, early to mid-July, and spacing 60 by 5 to 10 cm for sesame and soybeans, fertilizer regime, single application, and spacing for sunflower. We have also generated information on the efficacy of locally produced organic amendments for enhancement of soil fertility and productivity of crops in soil or compatible mixtures under organic crop production system for soybean, sesame, sunflower in this region or part of the world. The current production level of these minor oilseeds with huge production potential must be increased in order to drive the growth of vegetable oil sector going forward. My recommendations: there is the urgent need to bridge the gap between researchers and farmers. We'll keep saying it. If the developed technologies must get to the end users, I recommend inclusion of farmers from the very beginning when a research topic is being conceived and planned for execution, because the small to medium scale farmers, they produce about 90% of the food we consume in tropical Africa. But they, God forbid that they should go into extinction now. It's difficult, it's dangerous to farm now. All the National Agricultural Research Institutes, NARIS, should be adequately funded to have a full complement of the value chains of their mandate crops. More funds should be allocated to them. There is a need for massive investment in oil extraction and value addition technology in order to encourage production of the oilseeds with export potential. Synergy between the NARIS and colleges and faculties of agriculture in the specialized and conventional universities should be strengthened. Gainful employment of our graduates by government and private bodies across value chain will also help drive the much anticipated revolution in agriculture. The various agencies saddled with the responsibilities to implement food and agricultural policies should be well empowered and motivated. If the well-articulated policies in agriculture must have any meaningful impact on the productivity of agriculture sector of the economy, then the focus must shift a little from production to enhancing value addition across the facets of the value chain for all commodities. These slides, you will see this sesame, from the leaves to the seed, everything is utilized. Nothing is thrown away in China. But here, unfortunately, we throw away the leaves. At times when we do thinning, it's a pity. No part of that crop is wasted from the leaves down to the oil that you get from it. Is possible, it is doable. There should be a very strong synergy between policies, programs, projects, and frameworks at regional and national levels to enable all these strategies to work. The society must reduce gender inequality and recognize the contribution of women, which is over 80%, to agricultural food production. Mechanization of the basic agronomic practices, such as planting, tilling, harvesting of the oilseed crop, should be pursued vigorously in order to reduce drudgery and improve technical competence of the workforce. Again, sesame is my prime crop. It is possible. From planting to harvesting, you can mechanize it. It is done. I saw it live. It is not possible. And luckily, some mega investors are interested in mechanizing sesame production. And our university is not folding its arms. That's a combined harvester. Some of us might not have seen it. I saw it working. It can harvest soybeans, it can harvest maize, it can harvest rice. It worked at Dew Farms. And also beside it is a seed processing machine. Bring your dirty seeds, it will clean it, winnow it, and you bag clean seeds. So the university is also making beautiful strides in mechanizing agriculture. The training of the local farmers that produce about 80% of the oilseed consumed in Nigeria is strongly advocated, because these people have advocated manual harvesting techniques. There is the need to invest massively in order to increase the total cropland under irrigation, which is presently 1%, and thereby transform the Nigerian economy from rain-fed to grower-fed. Irrigation can provide the boost that the Nigerian economy needs to make that leap from rain-fed to grower-led. Our university also is trying to dam a river. There will be facilities again for irrigation. I pray experience of last year will not repeat itself by the grace of God. So, since organic agriculture is now recognized as the fastest growing sector of agriculture globally, Nigeria should take advantage of this opportunity by facilitating the mainstreaming of organic agriculture into the curricula of education at various relevant levels in the country. It has been taken up at OND level, and at the university level as well. Some courses are being taught. I know of APH and horticulture in organic agriculture. We need to mainstream this new move into our agriculture. Acknowledgements. These are flowers from the wild on an organic farm. It just got picked from the wild and put very beautiful. And visitors were just dropping money for the needy. To God first and my departed parents. These are my siblings. We are 8 in number. I'm number 7. And we are all alive. Some are here. That's the small boy there in front. I'm very, very grateful to all of you. You are wonderful people. Thank you very much for all that. Number 7 and the last to get married, they took care of everything. Thank you very much. You are well appreciated. My graduate supervisors, both of them are late, that sent Anatoly Jibarovsky in Russia. I worked on irrigation of soybean. Incidentally, my 2 projects, master's PhD, were on soybeans. Department of Irrigation. I was in a different faculty. You can go to any faculty of interest and do your master's project. So I opted for irrigation of soybeans under this very difficult and interesting man. But at least it did well for me. And late Professor Clement Oluwole Alofe at OAU. Myself and Professor Keleye had the same supervisor. To my Oilseed friends, the 3 of them are pastors. Pastor Enukumeyi, Adeju Igbe, Shoretire. They are quiet people. They are quiet goal getters. Thank you for the efforts you have put in me and also put in you. Copeland family, my sincere appreciation to my dean, Professor Emo Atayeshi. You are well recognized. My senior colleagues, late Professor Claire, Professor Adetiloye taught me at IFE during my PhD program. Professor Lasanton, O.J. Ariyo, J. Adigun, Bodunde, Nico Meyin, Atayeshi, Oyekanmi, my HOD, Professor Ailagbe, Professor Adigbo, Tom Fabinmi, my director, J.J. Atungu, and Dr. S.O. Sakariao. Just to mention a few, you are all very important. All professors in the college, I salute you. The teaching and the non-teaching staff, you are also highly recognized. Special tributes. Professor Okuneye facilitated my employment. He never left me alone at NCRI Balegi until he brought my CV and application. He virtually facilitated my movement from Research Institute to this place. Professor Adu paved the way for organic agriculture in this university in the formation of OLOWE team. And my beloved colleague, Professor K. Okeleye, they were wonderful. To my international collaborators, I so far world member. By the grace of God, I'm still a world board member. You can easily identify me in the photograph, the only black man there. We are from 12 countries, 11 countries, 12 people. I can tell you 11 different arguments on the table. But by and large, we always struck a balance. Very wonderful people from all over the world. We'll be rounding up in September this year virtually instead of going to France physically. OLOWE team family, we started in 2005. We are still waxing strong as the pioneer organic agriculture body in this country. And also NOAN started in 2009. To date, I'm the current president. I should be rounding up this year also in this association. And to AMREC members, I love you. Thank you for the beautiful 3 years I spent at the center. If Sarah, my home base, all the past directors are highly appreciated. And that was a recent picture on top with the Vice Chancellor, Professor Oshinowo, our pioneer director, Professor Motayo, Professor Oluwatosin, and others. Special appreciation to all my graduate and undergraduate students. My set at Eko Borsai School, Lagos, they are here. Sovio Adisa and Akiemi, they are here. I welcome you. And those people that accepted me into the community, the Landlords Association at Elite Estate in Gbonogun and Gbonogun Central, you are also highly appreciated. And members of my church at Pansheke, you are also highly appreciated, and in Abeokuta generally. And lastly, to God be the glory, my immediate family, my nucleus family. My wife is here, Rebecca Olawumi OLOWE. She read international relations, but for marriage, she had to abandon and come to Abeokuta to meet me. God has blessed us with 3 boys. 2 of them are here. IBK is not here. Far away doing his PhD on forensic science, close to Manchester. He's not here, but he's on Zoom. Timothy Ayolu OLOWE, product of civil engineering department, is an engineer in Lagos, is here. And our baby, Angela, reading architecture in Unilag, is also here. And I hope I've been able to anoint your head with oil. So surely goodness and mercy will follow you all the days of your life. Thank you very much.